I'm doing a series right now I'm calling Don't Say That, Words That Take You Down. And just a question. You ready? How many of you complained at all this week? Just be honest. Okay, did anybody try not to? All right, here's a question. Ready? Did anybody make one day without complaining? Look at that.
Good job.
You win the cigar, except we don't have cigars, so we'll have to. Good job. Hey, so last week talked about complaining and how that takes us down. It really, it's just so easy. It really is easy to replace it with gratitude. And next week, after dealing with these two, I'm going to tell you the number one secret to dealing with all these attitude issues that have to do with the things that we say and the things that we do and everything. That's what we're going to be dealing with next week. But I want to start off today with the verse that I started off with last week, because this is really, it's so important that we realize that the things we say, the way we behave, they represent our relationship with God and the effect that it has on other people. Let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. Now, how many times did you encourage people this week? Did you notice it makes you feel better? It really does. I mean, you can be sitting there I mess up a lot. And by the way, can I just tell you something? I didn't try one day not to complain this week. It was busy week, and we got. But I will tell you something, that teaching this stuff does help a little bit. Because last night I was talking to my wife, and I did something that is so natural for us. I gossiped. I really did. It wasn't last night. It was yesterday afternoon, and I was talking to her about something, and I went right into gossiping, and I started, Nick, he's a pretty good guy on the surface. Oh, wait, that's gossip, isn't it? Oh, good. But I did, and here's the funny thing was, I didn't even think it was gossip. I mean, I did. And it wasn't about you, Nick, really. Seriously. We love you, even though you're a cad. You know what I'm saying? For y'all that are young, I don't even know what cad means exactly, but it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. It's an old word for not a good thing. And, but I think that's one of our biggest problems about complaining and gossip. It becomes so much a part of who we are and what we do, and part of our culture. There's some university in Amsterdam did a study on work conversations. And I don't know how true this exactly is, but if it's written down and it's a study, it has to be absolutely true, right? Wouldn't you think? They say that 90% of all work conversations, social conversations, not I'm having a meeting, get your job done, or you're fired conversations, are gossip, is gossip. And I had mentioned that on Facebook this week, and a lot of people, yeah, I think so. I think that's the case. And we just do that. We just do that automatically. So, and then another study from somewhere in America, I can't remember who it was, said that 10% of emails are gossip. Now, they weren't about to say how much of Facebook was gossip, But the bottom line is, those are things that we do, and they're things that we do that they take us down and they cause problems in our life. So I want to start off with a quiz. Y'all ready? How many of y'all like quizzes, huh? I used to almost throw up every morning before school because I was afraid something was going to be a quiz. Is that crazy? But here's a quiz. True or false? Rumors are dainty morsels that sink deep into one's heart. Who says true? True. Who says false? I was just trying to get somebody to put their hand up. No, nobody. Everybody believes that. Do y'all know what? This is in the Bible. This is in the Bible. As a matter of fact, on your notes right there, right beside it, right? Proverbs 18:8. Proverbs 18:8. By the way, if you haven't read Proverbs, if you're one of those people that are thinking, I'd really like to get to where it's the new year, I want to read the Bible, I would tell you this. If you've got all excited and you got about 3 pages into Genesis and quit, or maybe you made it to Leviticus and said, I can't even say that word, then start off with a couple different things. One is Proverbs. Here's the cool thing about Proverbs. There are 31 chapters, and they're short chapters. You can easily keep up with where you're supposed to be in Proverbs by on January 1, Proverbs 1, January 2. Do that. The other thing is, I've told y'all a lot, go to the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and I would start with John. And don't read it going, man, I got to get through 8 pages today. No, don't do that. You pray about it first. God, would you please point out to me the things that I need to know? I just want to give you a secret, ladies, if you want to know something to make your husband happy. Don't read the Bible for him. Don't read the Bible and then stick it next to the toilet with the part underlined that he's supposed to see. Just don't do that. You just read it yourself and ask God to show you, and you chew on it. And if you've only got 15 minutes to do that in the morning, then don't worry if you only get through 1 verse. Boy, sometimes, y'all right, you come to 1 verse and you go, whoa, and you look. I use the acronym LISTEN, ENGAGE, APPLY, and PRODUCE. Matter of fact, if y'all don't know, we have these little 3-ring binders back there if you want a place to keep your notes from Sunday morning, and we call those LEAP notes. LEAP, listen, engage, apply, produce. That's how you read the Bible. That's how I teach the Bible. It's about being prepared to listen, engaging with it. What does it mean in my life? Applying it to my life, and then what will happen is you're going to produce. But we love gossip. As a matter of fact, when we start to hear gossip, our ears just, perk up because we want to hear dirt on somebody. And when I did a lot of reading on gossip this week, and it's a part of our culture. It's a part of who we are. It's a part of our wanting to become part of somebody. I mean, people in the office like to get involved with gossip. Now, the poor guy who's getting gossiped about doesn't feel that way about it. But it's actually the sociologists and psychologists talk about the community that it builds itself around. I can think of a lot better things to build your community around. But, because you got to ask yourself, how do you feel when somebody gossips about you? Embarrassing, right? Embarrassing. And sometimes you don't find out until you hear somebody else gossiping about you. Or somebody's gossiping about you to you and they don't realize that you're the one they're gossiping about. Oh, I'm Royal. I'm the one you're talking about. Yeah, at the office. You know what I'm saying? So here's something you got to think about that may help deter you from listening to and participating in gossip. If a person gossips to you about someone, he gossips to someone else about you. That's pretty much guaranteed, because that's a very lack of discipline, the fact that you would talk about somebody else's life. And you got to realize it's not just about whether it's a rumor or it's not necessarily true. Gossip can be stuff that's true as well. Things that you know that you shouldn't know, or things that people have told you for you to keep a confidence, and you give that away. You gossip that. Here's a short thing about gossipers. Gossipers speak of the faults and failings of others, or reveal potentially embarrassing or shameful details regarding the lives of others without their knowledge or approval. Autumn was talking about life groups earlier today. If you're a guest here today, in your notes, in your bulletin, there's a sheet on their group notes for our life group. You can use those for your family, but it's great to get together with the life group. I know tonight, our life group, we're going to get together, we're going to eat, and about 10 minutes in, we're going to fight about who gossips and who doesn't. It's going to be great, and we're going to sell tickets to the neighbors. Y'all come on out and watch. But if you're not part of a life group, become a part of it, and we'll put you in a less violent one than mine is. And this, even if they mean no harm or is the truth, it's still gossip. You know, I've called people out on gossiping before, and they'll say, well, it's not gossip if it's true. Huh? Or, I didn't mean to hurt anybody. You know? I mean, it's just messed up. Isn't that how all sin is? You know? Anybody here think looking at pornography is bad? Anybody? Do you know that people can get to the point where they look at it where they don't even think about it being bad? They watch movies and things like that, and then what happens is they're trying to reconnect with God, or they're in a church service, and all of a sudden they get this deep conviction. You know, one of the worst gossips I hate is when someone gossips about somebody and they do it as a prayer request. That's one of the biggest problems in churches, no doubt. First of all, our life groups, you're supposed to keep confidential the things that are talked about in our life groups. And I will tell you, life group isn't, if you're scared of going to life groups because you think about everybody talks about all that stuff, they don't. The girls do. Most of the guys don't. But the other thing is, don't share your deepest, darkest secrets in a life group. Share that with your therapist or your spouse or whatever. And just the most important thing about our life groups is that we get together, we build community with each other, and we learn from each other. And now there may be somebody or two in that group that you get close with, that you get comfortable about. But I'll just tell you, the first time you go to a life group and you're just trying to connect, don't just sit there and spill your guts. When I used to be a therapist, people would come to me and they'd come in and they're just like ready to just unload, and they go blah blah blah, and I'd go, wait just a minute, wait. Now here's what I want you to understand. If you completely spill your guts today, you'll probably be scared to come back next week. So you just got to decide right now, even though I'm your therapist and you're paying me to do therapy, you don't have to spill all your guts today. And that's an important thing to remember. That's an extra added bonus for selling our life groups. But it's still gossip. It's still gossip even if you don't mean is or not. But it's a part of our culture, and we just do that naturally. And again, our conversation is supposed to be that of encouragement and building people up. And as we talked about last week with complaining, the things that go on in our life, God wants to use those to make us stronger, to make us better, to make us a part of the plan that He has to use us because of the experiences we have. The thing about gossip that is false is that gossip gives us a false sense of self-worth and approval. And doesn't it just feel good to be in the know? I'm just in the know, and it doesn't matter whether it's true or not. You can watch that on Facebook every single day. But gossip gives us just a false sense of self-worth and approval. And y'all know, we talk about this all the time. That's what we want in life. You know, as human beings, we are born basically with two needs. We are born with a need to feel approved, to feel significant, and to have a purpose. So it's important that we realize that we're trying to get that filled all the time. And what would God, how do you think God would want you to fill your need for significance and approval? Through what? Through what? Through God, right? Through God and through God's love. And the cool thing I like about God's love, and I've shared this story before, is God's love is, it's unending. It's infinite. Has anybody screwed up any this week? Just anybody screwed up 10 times, 100 times, 20 million times? You know what I'm saying? I mean, but here's the deal with God's love. I always like to say it this way. I love this story. What if you were to walk into your house today and you were open we've all got one of those closets in the front of the house that has a couple of coats in it and all this other junk is in there. And what if you were to open that up to look for something for the only time you ever look in there, and there's like money. And money just comes out of it. You go, hey, who put this money in here? Honey, did you put all this money in here? It's just money in it. Well, it's in my house and whatever. And so you take it and I'm going to go buy groceries. And you come back and the money you took out, it's replaced. There's more money there. So you take it and you go buy a new car and you come back and you take it and you buy your kid an electronic game and you come back and it just keeps filling up. And there's going to come a point, right? There's going to come a point where you go, I got plenty of money. I think I'll start giving it away. Well, that's how God's love is. when you get to the point that you understand that God's love is infinite for you, you'll give it away. See, as parents, I hear moms say all the time that their love is conditional. Well, it's really not, ladies. I'm not trying to offend anybody, because you can only give away so much love unless you really understand where your love is coming from. I watch lots of mamas go from, I love my kid, I love my kid, I love my kid, to get out of this house, you know, and not really loving their kid anymore or being loved toward their kid. So that's the deal. We get who we are from our love from God, and then you're not going to have to go to things like gossip and stuff. But here's the deal. There's a battle going on all the time, and you have to remember, a spiritual battle is important that we remember that we are constantly in this spiritual battle. We're in a battle between the evil spirit and good spirit, God and the devil. If you're in here today and you're not really a believer, you don't really understand, and you think devil is a weird word, by the way, did you know that about 90-something% of people believe in heaven, and only about 40-something of people believe in hell? So, you know, people pick what they like, right? I'll take heaven, but I'm not taking hell. But the devil's a real thing. Jesus actually calls him that. But let's just say evil. Let's just say the difference between the evil and good, and that battle that's going on. And look at this verse. This is actually Jesus talking right there. He says and in this process, he's talking about the devil. If you feel more comfortable with using the word evil, that's okay. The evil is always hated the truth. Always hated the truth, because there's no truth in him. So when you think about things like gossip giving you this significance and approval, that's the devil. You know, the red devil on one side and the angel on the other side. That's the devil saying, dude, just gossip a little bit. You know, just do this, just do that. And that's going to make you feel better about yourself. That's that battle that's going on all the time. He goes on to say, when he lies, it's consistent with his character. Why? Because he is a liar. He is a liar and the father of lies. So here's the cool thing that I love about studying the Word of God. The more you study the Word of God, the more you know when you're being lied to. You know there are things that you shouldn't do the closer you get to God. And as you continue to do that, then what happens is when somebody lies to you, you know, if you know something for sure and somebody comes up and tells you something different, you can go, no, you're lying. And this can be at any time. There was a time in our history as a human being that Adam and Eve ran around with no sin in their life. They were naked. They were just eating fruit and hanging out. And, you know, the blowing in the breeze, all that kind of stuff happened. And all of a sudden, one day, the devil comes into the picture for the first time in the human life, because he'd been banished to earth, remember, because he was Lucifer and he'd wanted to be God. And God sent him and about a third of the angels out that were his followers. But the devil shows up and he doesn't just go, do this, you know, do this, like they show the bad guys in the movie. The devil tricks you. Did God really say you couldn't eat any of the fruit in this garden? He goes, no, that's not what he said. He said we can't eat this fruit, this fruit right here. He goes, now think about it, Eve. If God really loves you, wouldn't he want you to eat that fruit? If God really loves me, he would. Right? That's what she thought, and that's what she does, and that's what he does, and that's what the devil does to us. The devil thinks, I have parents tell me all the time, all I want for my kid is for him to be happy. It is not God's goal for you to be happy. And no matter how much you throw money at kids or anything else to try to make them happy, it just makes them more miserable. God's goal for us is to be joy, because God loves us. That's his goal for us, is to live our lives in such a way that no matter what happens, we have that. But the devil wants to tell us all the time, look, if God really loves you, wouldn't he want you to be happy? That's temptation. That's that sense of, I must do this in order to feel good myself. And in that temptation, the devil is constantly trying to tempt you and pull you away from God. That's what he does. And what happens is, when you fall into this idea that gossip is a good thing, it's okay to talk to it, I feel better about myself, then let me just give you a few things that if you do that on a regular basis, these are some things that you struggle with. These are some things that you struggle with. First of all, is a strong sense of pride. You know what pride says? I'm me and I don't need God. That's what pride says. Pride, the Bible actually says that when we are prideful, we are making ourselves enemy of God. Now pride in a job well done, or I want to give God glory when I do that. That's a whole different thing than being, what happens a lot of times I see is when people are down, they kind of get humble and they reconnect with God. And as soon as life starts going better again, they get prideful and they disconnect from God. But this sense of pride is which makes you an enemy of God. Another thing is a distrust from others. I mean, again, if people are gossiping to you about someone, they're gossiping about you to someone. So just don't get involved. And what ends up happening is those people that hear you gossiping and hear you talking about other people, they will distress you. Another thing it does is it cripples or destroys relationships. It will cripple, and you guys, you may have been involved in a relationship in your life at one time or another, and a lot of times it's between a man and a woman, but it causes such a problem in your life that it destroys your relationship. The other thing it ruins reputations. It ruins reputations. By the way, it ruins the reputation of the gossiper. And would that be the gossipee, the victim, the one that's being gossiped about. The other thing it does when you're gossiping and stuff, you start worrying about what people think. So it will actually generate anxiety in your life. By the way, lies do the same thing. Lies do the same thing. Just about anything we do. Complaining does the same thing. It generates anxiety in our life. And then here's the one that bothers me the most. Here's the one that bothers me when I watch other people all the time carrying out their life is it makes Jesus followers look bad. Look, we get judged enough without, the only way we should ever get judged is people should be saying something like, wow, I'm not sure I really like what that guy believes or know what that guy believes, but that guy's got character, and that guy sticks to his word, and that guy's loving, and he's honest, and I really trust him, and that's the only way that it could come. The only time somebody should hate you as a Christian is because they just hate the fact that you tell the story about God, and you try to show God's love in your life, and that's going to happen. There are people in Muslim countries getting killed off every single day because they're living their life for Christ, not because they're judging the people that are judging them. They're the ones being judged. Well, let's look. There are really three different people that get affected by gossip. Gossip doesn't just hurt the target. So that's what we're going to, and I'm going to tell you a little story too that you've probably heard before. But the first thing is this. You can never take back the impression of a person that gossip creates. Once you've gossiped, y'all know how it is. Y'all, in my business, there are a lot of things I do to try to keep myself safe. If you ever call me and say, can I go meet you for coffee, and you're a female, I will not meet you for coffee. I will not come to your house by myself. I will not drive you home if all of a sudden everybody disappears and it's just me and you. I'll call and get help. I'll call and get my wife to drive you home. I'll get my daughter to drive you home or whatever. But I'm not going to put myself in a position because all it takes is a rumor. Careers. Now, there's a lot of bad guys out there that have ruined their own careers and it was truth. But rumors and gossip about people ruin their, and especially nowadays with all the things that are going on nowadays in the media and all. And a lot of those things are really, really bad things. But all it takes is an accusation. I want to read you a story. And from what I knew, this was a story kind of from the old Jewish culture. In the old Hebrew Jewish culture, they believed that slander or rumors like that or slander is, if you slander someone, it's akin to murder. They put that on the same level because they say it murders your reputation. It kills your reputation. But as I was researching this week, there are several other people that kind of rewrote it. I think it came from the Jewish culture because the book I read had Hebrew writing in it and stuff like that. Anyway, but listen to this story. Once upon a time, there was a man who loved to gossip. Every day he would sit with his friends gossiping about the bad things others may have done. he did that? Can you believe she said that? And did you see what he was wearing? A man of his age? On and on he would gossip. One day, a rabbi asked to see him. There's something I want you to do for me, he told him. He gave him a pillow and told him to go outside, to cut it open, release all the feathers to the wind. But why? The man asked. Just do what I asked, the rabbi said. The man went outside, he took the pillow and he cut it and released all the feathers, and the feathers went all over the place. And he came back to the rabbi and he says, now Rabbi, what do I do? And the rabbi says, now go back out and collect all of those feathers. But I can't, he pleads. They've been blown all over the place, down the street, over the hill. I'll never be able to bring all of those back. The rabbi looked at him sternly. And so it is with the words of idle gossip, he told him. Words once spoken can never be taken back. There's no telling how far they will travel and what harm they could do. From now on, I want you to think before you speak. That's a little hint of what I'm going to be talking about next week. But look at Proverbs 16. By the way, there's a lot of good stuff in Proverbs. Again, start reading Proverbs. Proverbs 16:28 says, a troublemaker plants seeds of strife. Just plant seeds of strife. Gossip separates the best of friends. It's important that we realize that gossip also tempts the listener. What? Remember I told you, when we start hearing gossip, we feel like this is something that we're in the know. We feel like we want to tell somebody else what we know. And what we've got to realize is when we gossip, we're tempting someone else to gossip. Do you understand that? You understand that, right? You go, what? Let me read to you what Jesus said. Look at Matthew 18:7a. What sorrow awaits the world. Now what he's talking about, anytime Scripture, Jesus talks about the world, he's talking about away from God. He's talking about evil. He's talking about the place where the devil dominates. He's talking about the world. He says, what sorrow awaits the world, because the world tempts people to sin. Y'all, we wouldn't do things wrong if we weren't tempted, right? You know? How many of you guys have gone to the grocery store on an empty stomach? $1,000, you know what I'm saying? I mean, and you go, now sometimes I'll go with Lisa to the grocery store and I'll eat right before we go, and she'll go, well, what do we want? What do we need? I go, she goes, do we need this? I said, no, I don't think so. She goes, do you need this? I go, no, I don't think so. Do you need this? I don't think so. Little Debbie's, I need one of those. But we'll get home and I'll get ready to get something out of the cabinet or something like that, and I'll say, we're out of ravioli or whatever. She'll go, I asked you at the store if we needed that. Well, I was full. I wasn't tempted to buy ravioli. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I'm talking about. If you prepare yourself all the time to where you won't be able to be tempted, but Jesus said temptations are inevitable. We live with that all the time. And again, that's why when we're close to God and we're tempted to do something, it looks so black and white. What you have to be careful of is when the temptation and the good and the bad goes from slides into gray and then no color at all. You know, I think that's when the problem comes. He says, but what sorrow awaits the person who does the tempting. So, when you gossip, it's not just bad that you're gossiping, which we know God tells us not to gossip. It's bad that you're tempting somebody. You know, when I talk to y'all, for example, about alcohol, I don't believe it's wrong to drink alcohol. I don't believe it's wrong for me to sit in my living room or in my kitchen and have a beer or whatever. But I do believe this. I believe that when I'm in public and I tempt somebody else to do something that they shouldn't do, it's wrong. And when that came to me one time, I just started working with youth. I was 20-something years old, and Lisa and I were sitting in a Oh, it used to be our favorite Mexican restaurant over in Dallas, and I just forgot completely what the name of it was. We're sitting in this restaurant, and I'm drinking I can't remember if I was drinking a frozen margarita or a cold beer with my Mexican food, which was so good. And I'm sitting there, and this kid, about the age of the kids I worked with, walked up, and he's just standing there beside my table. He's waiting on somebody, or he's looking or something. And all of a sudden, guys, this was so clear. Does God ever just tell you things sometimes and you think that is just so clear? And I remember I looked at my drink, and I looked at the kid, and I looked at my drink, and I pushed that drink out of the way. It's important that we live our lives to where we're not influencing other people. Now, I'm not saying that drinking a beer in your living room is a sin. But there are a lot of other things you can do in private that just because you're doing them in private doesn't mean that they're not sin. You know what I'm saying? So please don't go home and say, Royal said I could do this because nobody saw me. It's the things you do in your private that determines what your character are. So, but the sorrow awaits the person who is doing the tempting, because gossip tempts us. And remember, we're told to say everything good and helpful because we want to build other people up and encourage other people. Gospel also destroys the reputation of the gossiper, as I talked about just a little while ago. Now, you can do something to control gossip. Let me just go through this real quick. You can do some things to control gossip. Remind yourself how bad you would feel. Remind yourself how bad you would feel. I'll just tell you something. The closer I've got to God, the more I feel people's pain. When I was young, I was quick to judge people for just about anything. You know, you sorry human being. You ought to be able to do better than that. You ought to be able to raise your kid better than that. You ought to be able to, you shouldn't be treating your kid. Come on, whoop that kid, you know? I mean, but I never thought about where the other person was coming from. And the closer you get to God, the more you start feeling that, the more you realize where people are coming from and what's going on inside their life. But we've got to remind ourselves how bad we would feel if people gossiped about us and said bad things about us. This is a verse that you're familiar with. Do to others whatever you would like them to do for you. That would be a great way to live your life. You know, at LCC, we talk all the time about the importance of loving God and loving people. The best way to do that is to do the things that you would like, or treat people the way you would like them to treat you. This is the essence. Now listen, I'm going to go somewhere with this. This is the essence of all that is taught in the law and the prophets. Now, you guys have listened to me long enough teach to know that I say there's another thing that Jesus says that talks about what's taught by the law and the prophets. This is the essence. This is what it's all about. If you want to do the things that you're asked to do from the law and the prophets, which is this, then you would do to others the way you would want them to do to you. Do you know what is in the law and the prophets that he's talking about? Jesus said the most important thing that all of the laws of the prophets fall under: to love God and love people. That's the essence. If you want to know how to love God and love people, then you do things to treat others the way you would like to be taught. One is the essence of, this is what it's about. The other is the law. And the other thing is, don't gossip because God says no. Don't just think, well, it's truth, or, oh, whatever, oh, it's not going to hurt anybody. Just get to the point where you just understand that when you do that, and by the way, if you will get used to apologizing when you do things, I apologized to Lisa a couple hours later. When it hit me was, I was sitting here studying last night, and I went, oh, I need to call my wife and tell her I'm sorry. She's staying with the twin grandkids, taking care of them today. So again, we get back to Ephesians 4:29. Let everything you say be good and helpful, so that your words will be an encouragement to those who hear them. Tell the gossiper you don't want to participate and it's wrong. Boy, how's that going to feel at the office? Huh? How's that going to feel in the office? Look, when somebody, and I've sat, anybody who's in my group now or around me anytime at all won't do this, but I've sat in groups before, and we're going around asking for prayer requests. But when it would go around group and I was teaching, somebody would say, you know, John and Susan are really having a hard time with their marriage. You know, their kids are, I go, wait. Did they ask you to come ask our group for prayer? Well, no, boy, that shuts people down quickly. It shuts people down quickly. So when people start to say something to you, tell them, I don't really feel good about talking about people. And a lot of times that will instantly make somebody not ever come up and gossip to you again, because it'll give them the creeps. They were trying to build this community with you, and all of a sudden you're saying, I really don't feel good about talking to other people. One of the things we have to realize is sometimes a gossiper forgets that it's gossip. And that's a quick, kind way. And you might have a kinder way to do that, but I wouldn't just say shut up or slap them or anything like that, because that's usually not the best way to do it, but because they'll probably come back at you even harder. Look what it says. Jesus says, if another believer sins against you, go privately and point out the offense. So we're actually supposed to, as believers, we're supposed to help each other out. There are people that I'm close to that when they see me mess up, I expect them to tell me that I mess up. I expect them to call me out on the carpet. And that's not judgmental. That's how we encourage each other to do things we're supposed to do. It's not all about just patting each other on the back, saying, way to go, way to go, way to go. It's, would your wife like it if she knew you were doing that right now? It's important for us to realize that, and it's our job to encourage each other. And if somebody actually does something that's an offense towards you as a believer, it's your job to call them out. And that's gossip is a perfect example of that. Look what he says. He says, if the other person listens and confesses, oh, you're right. I'm so sorry. Thank you for calling me out of that. Now look, I'm not talking about, let me tell you who we are not as a church. Our church is full of people who have been to churches before, and all of a sudden their life got hard, and they went to church and they weren't accepted by their church. They started having trouble with their marriage or something like that. And even as a counselor, this really stood out to me, because I had people come to me all the time who all of a sudden this church that they loved, they were being judged because of the hard things that were going on in their life. But this isn't something that you just walk up, like, for example, if you found out somebody in here that you didn't even know was having an affair or something like that, and you just decided it was your job to go call them out, and you did that, you're wrong. You're wrong. But when you have a close relationship built with somebody, that's a part of what happens in the relationship. You love people, you serve them, you encourage them to do the right things. And that's what true friendship is all about. And that's not something that we do in here. Oftentimes I'll talk to somebody who's not going to church anymore or whatever, and they'll say, well, I just don't feel like I connected with anybody. And I'll say, did you go to anything that was set up for you to connect with somebody? Well, no. Connect. We do everything we can to help you connect. Connection is so important. But if a person will confess and agree that it's wrong, then that will actually bring them back close to God, and that's a part of what we do as encouragers that we're supposed to do with each other. Say something good about the victim, and I decided to use victim instead of the person who was being gossiped about. Say something good about the person. Again, practice saying things good, but when somebody starts to bring something up, and you might say, well, I don't really feel good about talking about this, but so-and-so, he's a pretty good guy. Do you know he did this? On your groups today, I think it's about question 9, I'm challenging you to go out and say something nice about somebody to somebody else at least once a day. Just once a day. Try it this week. Try to say something nice about somebody to somebody else instead of the opposite, which is gossip.